Hey guys, here's the next installment in the kitchen dinette table restoration project. In the earlier installment I had finished stripping, sanding, and staining one half of the top, and now I'm working on the other half. I don't know what kind of finish is on here. I don't know if it's original. What I can tell you is it's not much of anything. I don't think it's shellac lacquer, or certainly isn't polyurethane. It might just be oil or some type of wax. I'm just using this stuff on it. It just comes off really easy. I got a comment that back in the day they used the technique of putting oak, I think white oak furniture in a strong ammonia environment, which would darken the wood. That may very well be what they did on this. But I'm just going to use stain. I like the way the other half of the top turned out. And now with both these top pieces off, we're going to take a closer look at those sliding rails. This is what I was trying to describe in the earlier installment as dovetails, or sliding dovetails. So here's what I was talking about. So you have three boards here. One half of the top attaches to one board, the other half of the top attaches to another board, and then there's the centerpiece. So these just slide by each other. And this is where I want to apply some type of wax to help these slide better. So there's a stop in there so you can't stretch the things out so far they fall apart. Alright, so I'm going to get to stripping this down and then sanding it and staining it just like I did the other half. I'm just using some quadruple zero steel wool, a little bit of the strip solution, and this stuff comes right off. I think the only thing I've put on this table in the time I've had it is maybe some Old English or similar like lemon oil type product. Seems to this side's got some of those same type areas of filler. They're very light colored when you take the finish off. So let's touch this up as well. So that's about all it takes. It really just isn't much of anything on this. So in just a few minutes I'll have this whole top stripped down. Here it is the next afternoon and the stain has dried, and now I'm using a touch-up kit to darken in those light patches where some type of light filler was used. I suspect it is actually just plaster of Paris. So I have this little kit here of various colors. I'm using the medium oak right now, which is this color, which is pretty darn close to the base color. After that dries, I'll use some of the darker color to simulate some of this grain. I'll use a real thin brush and just kind of draw on some lines, and that should be quite unnoticeable from a distance. Initially I'd use golden oak stain on this tabletop, but when I compared it to the look of the old finish on the sides, it just didn't look that good. So I went back to the hardware store and checked out the other Minwax offerings and picked up some Provincial and gave it another coat. And I'm much happier with it now. It's a nice brown color. Well, it's been a few days since I did that, and it's nice and dry now, and I'm done with all my touch-ups. So the next step I want to do is put on some sanding sealer. I've used this Varathane stuff a couple other projects, really happy with it. Water-based, really easy to clean up. And as I say, it works well with oil or water-based finishes. So I'm just going to brush on some of this. And after it dries, sand it and probably put on another coat. And then I'm going to use polyurethane, which is something that you've never seen me do in a video before. I'm going to use this in Minwax semi-gloss. Because this table is going to see a lot of use. Lacquer, shellac, they just wouldn't hold up, I don't think, so I'm going to go with polyurethane. But first up, this stuff. you need to stir up the sealer thoroughly before you apply it, because you can see it's got a white solid in it. And when you apply it, it does look rather milky, but trust me, it dries clear. I think it takes a few hours, a couple hours. Of course, it's temperature dependent. Oh, 1 hour lower temperatures and/or higher humidity may cause slower dry times. So they say an hour under optimal conditions. I think it's going to take a bit longer because it's a bit cooler. And then I'm going to sand it very lightly with 220 grit because I don't want to burn through it and go down into the stain. And then I'll apply a second coat. The sealer actually did dry quite quickly, an hour or less, I'd say. And now I'm realizing that this has quite open grain, which is typical of oak. And I'm not going to be happy leaving it like that. Now, I could put on coat after coat of the sealer and sand it down to fill in the grain, but that's not very practical, and not something I would have a whole lot of fun doing, so I'm going to use some grain filler. What I've got on hand is walnut, so I'm going to go with that. Mix it up good right now, and then spread it on and get it down into all those pores. Now, this will make it a bit darker, but it's a brownish color, as is the grain, because the areas where it's really open is where it's darker. So it's just going to make this grain a little more pronounced. The light areas are tight grained, so I don't think it's going to alter the appearance too much. It will certainly result in a much smoother surface. Now that the grain filler is thinned down, I'm smearing it around with a brush, and then I'm going to start working off the excess with an old expired credit card. I ended up doing 2 passes of grain filler over the whole top and even a third pass in some areas, and then I put on the sanding sealer. And I'm pretty happy overall with it, but there still are a few voids, so I might put a little more grain filler in select areas. You can see it at the right angle, plus this needs to be sanded down from the sanding sealer. So yeah, this is the most open grain piece of wood I've ever dealt with. And multiple passes of the grain filler, and it's still not completely filled in. But definitely worth doing. This top is much smoother than it was before I put the filler. And you can definitely put the filler over the sanding sealer and alternate layers, no problem. Because once the grain filler sets up, it's just inert material. It's like a really fine silica grit type material. And here is the other side of the top, sanded. And I just put on some stain, so it's lagging behind this side a bit, but hopefully I'll catch up soon enough. And this side has considerably more of those areas of the light colored filler that I'll have to deal with. I think it's because this side has a lot more going on with the wood grain, almost like burls in areas, which also makes it look a lot cooler. A little weaviness in it. Let's see, we got more filler here, and actually two colors of filler, the really light and then a darker one, and then a whole lot more over there as well. So next up, I'm going to get out my touch-up color kit again and touch up all the light areas, and then put on that another layer, or another coat of the darker stain, and then seal it, and then start doing a grain filler on this as well. So this is taking longer than I expected, about a couple weeks longer than I thought it would, but in the end, it's going to be worth it because the table will be much smoother.